Hello and welcome to Universus. I am always Brett Pendragon. I am once again joined by the amazing new co-host Cameron UVS Hermit. And in lieu of Sean Gilmore, we brought in someone else with glorious goods, Sean O'Brien of the legendary Rochester CCG to talk over Denver, how it is to TO, and how amazing Retro is and why everyone should be playing Rochester Retro. How are you doing, Sean?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing today?
Doing all right.
I'm pretty tired. I've been doing a lot of recording for the last week, so I'm looking forward to getting a bit of rest.
You've been on that grind, man.
I have.
And here I am taking the week off.
All good. So, if you got something to say, Sean, go for it.
I was just going to say, I too am a little tired. Drove back from Colorado this week, which is not a short drive.
No. So, speaking of Denver, how did the event run? It seemed on the stream to be going pretty smoothly.
Oh, yeah, the event moved along pretty smoothly. We had, I think, 85 people showed up for the main event, which was a little less than we had hoped. So I think there was a little wallet fatigue, because here in the States, we had basically 3 travel months in a row, right? We had, North American Nationals in Dallas in January, then the World's Festival in Worlds in February in Orlando, and then back to Denver in March. So I think that held us back a little bit. So, hoping for Albuquerque here in 2 months in Mexico, we have a much larger turnout.
That makes a lot of sense. So UVS is kind of on a retro punt for this week, all throughout Worlds, this year, sorry, all throughout Worlds. All I was told from people is 2025 is the year retro. We've seen Cowboy Bebop, a retro product, up on the Redemption Star this week. And I know yourself you now have the Rochester Council with your suspension lists for Rochester. So for people who are thinking about it or a bit uneasy, what's the benefits of retro? And what is retro, actually?
So basically there are 2 thoughts on retro right now, right? There's, classic retro or vintage retro, I guess we could call it, which is cards going all the way back to 2010. So that's the Red Horizon set forward, following the original rules of the game. So that involves nonsense like attacking on one and multi-symboling to put cards in your deck that aren't supposed to be working together, and stuff like that. One of the things I wanted to do is we got all these new players who came in with My Hero Academia and Attack on Titan. We're going to get a bunch of new players with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And I said, well, what if we made retro look more like standard? And so, I worked it out with the council, as you decided to call it. We're a committee. This is America. Committee. And we got together and said, okay, well, how do we make retro look like standard? And we said, okay, well, why don't we get rid of attacking on one? Because there's a whole bunch of nonsense that can happen when you can attack on no foundations, because there's 300 3 difficulty attacks that clear themselves and do all sorts of nonsense like that. And we also said, especially with the Attune cards with AOT1, we decided it was time to get away from multi-symboling. Because with the Attune rules, most of your Attune cards, you couldn't actually play them in retro because of chaining requirements. If you started the turn playing cards only on the life symbol, but you had fire Attune cards in your deck because your character has fire, you couldn't actually play them. And one of the other benefits we found is when you're playing in retro, you kind of got to take your rival's word for it that they're chaining correctly, because no one's got time to sit there all day and okay, life, that's air card, you can't do that. And so just to take that right out of the game, just saying, okay, we're going to standardize it, everything's got a match symbol or be attuned, I think just made it a lot easier for deck building, especially for new players who've never seen these cards in their lives.
That makes a lot of sense. It makes retro a lot more accessible and a lot more appealing to newer players. Going on that line, what do you think the best way for people to get into retro is? What's kind of the best intro products or decks they could be playing?
So, one of the best ways to get into retro is, even if you just look at your standard cards, right? Your standard deck, you got something powerful going on. And then just looking through the retro list at cards that you think kind of advances the game plan you already have. I think that's the easiest way to start getting into retro. Unfortunately, the committee took out probably the easiest character to build in retro with our most recent suspension list. Sorry, Ken. So that was the easy answer was just build a Ken deck because it plays itself. But just take your standard deck, take the play style you like, and just look through and see what cards that you can take from retro and apply it to your standard game plan. That could even include changing out for a character that's got a more powerful ability that just matches what you're trying to do.
That makes a lot of sense. That's kind of what I did when I was getting to retro. I was looking at Shigaraki 3 and then someone went, yeah, Shigaraki 3 does a lot of check hacking with all these retro cards. But then we thought about Vega. I was like, ooh, what's Vega? And I instantly fell in love with retro once I got... Cam, any thoughts or questions on retro?
No, because for me, that was called standard back in the day. I got in just before Street Fighter 30th anniversary came out. My first week on the Facebook, they were previewing Vega. So that's how long I've been at this. So for me, that was called standard, and that's just nostalgia at this point. But I do appreciate the changes Rochester Retro has made, not attacking on turn 1 like a psychopath. Because I've definitely built decks that can get away with stuff like that, and it's very toxic. But also, because there's so much in retro to pay attention to, it can feel really daunting for new players. And there's just some degenerate stuff, like Drillman or Netali 2 being able to play these 13 difficulty Titan attacks without having to make a check. And Rochester Retro put a stop to that, which I appreciate, because that is disgusting and should not be done. Because if someone throws one of those on turn 2 at you and you just lose your whole stage in one turn and then they do it on your next turn, you're just not having fun. So my locals and I have a little thing we do, like retro as intended, where you basically take your character, you build mostly their cards and a couple of other cards from other sets that match the theme, but nothing like too degenerate. Have fun with it. Don't actually try to be a bad person. But I love retro. I think that's where you can get your absolute most thought process going. I often refer to it as Lee dropping the weights in Naruto, when he just drops the weights and he can move freely, and that's what it's like. That's what it feels like playing retro. You finally get to let loose and play with everything. So I absolutely love it, and I think Sean and his council committee are doing a great job at keeping it healthy but still fun.
I was going to have some questions on the council, but we have got a question in chat which does kind of lead into there. It's all well good to drop the weights for yourself who has been playing as long as it's kind of a nostalgia feeling, but as myself, someone who came in with MHA1, how easy is it to address card availability? How easy is it to get a hold of these retro cards?
That's a bit of a complicated question. If you live in Europe, unfortunately, it's not so easy right now. Due to some, changes as far as tax collection and whatnot goes, we're not able to ship to Europe if we're, doing it by the letter of the law, which that's how we operate here. So, sorry, Europe. If you live in the States, the best way to get a hold of these retro cards is, of course, head over to rochesterccg.com. You also can, find a lot of them on TCG Player as well. I think Legendary Wolf's still selling on TCG Player, and so that might be a place that you can find some of the cards as well. There are some sets that are just tricky to get a hold of, though. We know that Neomax, there are only like 1,500 boxes printed of that set. But at the same time, I don't think there are any real barn burners in Neomax that you have to have in order to play in retro. In fact, if you're thinking about getting into retro, you should probably just look at Libra of Souls. That's the set with the eye symbol. And because basically all the cards in that set are broken, except for the ones that are banned or suspended. Almost every card in that set is a little nutty. Everything was pushed. So start right there. Yeah, so you're looking for that little eye symbol in the lower left-hand corner. Those cards are generally pretty powerful. And the availability on those cards aren't that terrible. I think plenty went to Europe, and there's plenty here in the States as well.
That's a nice little tie-in to the fact that I'm filming this week my half box opening of Soul Calibur Libra to give the other half away. as part of the amazing deal you gave me at Worlds on a bunch of retro products that I'm going to also give out half it into the community.
Yeah, and you'll find some cool stuff in there. That set is bonkers.
Incredibly. For my idea for getting new players into retro, when we went to US Nationals, a couple of my locals wanted to start playing retro. All they did was buy the Darkstalkers Warriors of Night starter decks. I believe one bought Felicia and the other bought Jade Talbane. We just mixed in standard cards with it because Felicia deals with Punch Kick Slam. So we just threw all the Kuro Momotaro slams that go into your momentum face up because she's all about momentum generation. And he just ran wild with it. He had a great time. So you could just buy a starter deck or one of the... there's several 2-player starter packages for like Cowboy Bebop and Mortal Kombat. And then you could just start just adding your standard stuff to it and see how you like the feel of that. And that's a good cost-effective way to get in.
Speaking of that Mortal Kombat 2-player starter deck, the Scorpion deck is almost retro playable out of the box. The synergy is so high with it.
You just need to add some extra cards because I think those are turbos, aren't they?
Yeah, so they're only 40 cards, but you just get some Libra of Souls cards that match symbols with Scorpion, Vicious Madness, things like that. I think that works. Hope it works. Yeah. Hopefully not giving bad advice here. And you'll be just fine.
So we do have a webcam and /TTS retro league going on that the Dobbers and some other people have got going for us in the UK. And I have a Mortal Kombat 2 playset, and I have a box of Dark Soul Calibur Libra, so I might give that a try.
Absolutely.
Over here, I don't know if you play as much across the pond, but we do a lot of old dogs, like retro characters with a standard deck, and that's been kind of like one of the intro formats into retro because you get your standard deck, you put an old character on there, and then just like you were saying with the standard deck, you go, oh, this was really cool. How can I change these attacks? What can I change in here to make it retro legal or better in retro around this old character that I found that kind of complements my current playstyle?
But one thing I'm going to remind you is that every standard deck is a retro deck.
Yes.
Is a legal retro deck. So if you have a standard deck, you can play in retro.
Now that Momo 1 has rotated, this is correct.
Yeah, that and they ended up banning Twisty in all formats eventually.
Yeah.
Nope, Spotlight. We still got Spotlight for now.
Yeah, you gotta wonder to yourself when you're looking at cards. If you've got a card that's good enough to be banned in retro, probably should be banned in standard 2 generally.
Yeah. But there's also, like I said, a lot more degeneracy in retro, so maybe it unlocks something in retro that it doesn't have access to in standard.
Twisty was not the case.
Like, obviously, Punch and Judy were a big problem in retro, especially with Twisty. But, yeah.
At some point, I'll get Nathan Squire on to talk about the Pixie Bob Twisting Gazelle that just got to pop off turn 1 and say, you die now. But, yeah, going back to the Council of Rochester, the secret hooded figures that are looking over retro, is that decisions coming from potential problems that they've seen from past events, or just vigorous amounts of playtesting?
Well, so it's a bunch of things, right? Because one of the things that is good about our committee is we have a lot of players who have different experiences with retro. Some of the folks that are on the committee have been around since those cards were standard. We got, judges, and we got very, very good players. And so a lot of it is just looking at what people are playing and, looking at the results, watching the games, and a little bit's about feel too. And one of the things we like about what we're doing is we're not banning cards. We're just suspending them. So cards that end up suspended, if 2 months later, we get together and it's like, okay, what do we want to do for the next round of suspensions? If we think the format's changed in such a way that a card can come back, that is completely something that we can do. That's why we don't like the word ban. Mm-hmm. And in my land of sunshine and rainbows, I'd like to take the UVS Games ban list and switch it all to suspensions and then start tinkering under the hood. But I haven't quite gotten the blessing to do that yet, so that's kind of on hold. But those are the types of things we look at, and we walk around during these retro tournaments, Rochester Retro, and see, what kinds of things are happening. Are they the types of things that should be happening? And for example, for me, when I suggested Ken to the committee, I was watching a game where somebody played like 23 attacks in one turn. It's like, is this the type of thing we want to be happening? Because degeneracy is one thing, but there's a line, and each person on the committee has a different spot where that line is, and that's why we talk about it. Because if it was just me writing the suspension list, I probably would have suspended like 14 cards.
Well, I actually have a question about that, if I may, because I'm looking at your suspension list right now. You got Thermal Blast, Devil Jin, Ken, and of course Goro and Shiva, who never should have been unbanned. What about the no attacks Heidi deck? Where do you consider that on your line? Because for me, as much as I love the build Exodia kind of style, to play a game like this with no attacks and no real back and forth, I feel is antithetical to the spirit of the game. So where do you guys fall on something like that?
Well, I can't speak for everybody on the committee, but in my mind, I don't think that I don't find that play pattern particularly offensive, because with all the stuff going on in the format, with all the nonsense people are doing, that deck has challenges. It's not like it rolls in and does whatever it wants. Like when we looked at Colossus Thermal Blast, I watched a number of games at the World's Festival involving that card, and that deck got to do whatever it wants. So it turns out when you have the ability to turn your character sideways, 7 mid for 7, if you don't block it, your entire stage gets destroyed. Nothing you can do about that, even on without attacking on 1. The character, the Natali deck, could still play some attacks to soften your rival up. Stun attacks, things that you need to block, and it's be like, bam, deal with this or you lose your stage. Whereas Heidi still lets their rival play the game. The thing is, you just got to make sure that you don't play the game that long. And I think that's no different than any other control or stall deck in Universus. I mean, you look at Recovery Girl, who was recently errated into the ground. You could beat Recovery, but if you let her get to turn 7, 8, 9, then it becomes a lot harder. But you're still playing Universus. I'm not stopping my rival playing the deck.
Okay.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean,
that makes sense.
I was one of those filthy degenerates. I was playing Mina 1 Thermal Blast, so I could just check it, hit it, Merciless Master, put it on top of my deck, check it, hit it. Just, you don't get a stage sort of thing. And as the person doing it, feels great. As the person it's being done to, you're like, oh yeah, I just don't get to play the game. Why am I even bothering? It's a bit soul crushing, and it's not what we kind of want the players to be feeling.
One thing that I also, when I did the first suspension list, we released that. One of the things that actually made me feel good about some of the choices is some of the complaints we got when people were like, hey, you banned this character, and I just made this Goro deck that can do 82 damage on turn 2. And it's like, do you think maybe that might be the reason we had to make that choice? Or I built this deck that thermal blasts my opponent every single turn.
I don't know if you had this TV show over in America, but we had a TV show called Mitchell and Webb, where they had like a skit where it was World War II, and like there was 2 officers with skulls on their caps. Like you look at everybody else, like they've got the Star Spangled Banner, they've got like the Eagles. We have skulls. Are we the baddies? Like my deck can do 82 damage. Then 2. It's like, are you the problem? It's like
you might be the problem.
Yeah. Well, the only reason I talk about the Heidi deck is because I played against it at the retro event at Nationals, and he Exodia'd me on turn 2 both games.
Oh damn.
That's impressive.
So, because all he did was first form, build 1 in, play. What's the blueprint to search his deck for any one? Play into the Dreamlands, which means his next 4 non-attack cards ignore progressive, and then just checked running 6s.
I don't like it.
It does require setup, but then he's playing like this. All you're doing is playing all hyper defensive foundations and then the search cards. And if your rival can't do 21 damage in 1 to 2 turns because you're playing, oh, I block this, deal 0, I block this, deal 0, I don't have to block this, it's going to deal 0. it can feel like kind of like a Recovery Girl-esque wall that just ends the game a lot quicker.
Right. I mean, for sure, with this feedback, I'm going to take it to the committee, and we might have to. But maybe we'll only suspend the Krieger that wins you the game. That way, the rest of the character's still playable.
Yeah.
Or maybe some sort of limit list where you could only run one of that Krieger.
So that actually brings up a good point, because folks have been asking me, why don't you just errata cards or make a limited list? One of the reasons why we chose suspensions over unbannings, erratas, and so on and so forth is I don't like to add text to cards or rule effects to the game that we don't have to. If I could wave my magic wand and be in charge at UVS Games, I would never errata a card ever again. Any card that I found offensive that needs to be out of the game, ban or suspend it. We don't need to put giant monster only on combined firepower or remove it after it resolves. We just suspend it. We move on with our lives.
Yeah, I can see that.
I'm sorry. I let an opinion out there. I apologize.
No, it's a great opinion, because I just think banned has this kind of negative connotation to it, or it's never coming back. Whereas if you go, we're suspending combined firepower, it's too powerful in the current meta, but if there's ever a meta where we feel it's going to be more comfortable, we'll bring it back. It has that kind of open-endedness to the phrasing.
Right.
True, but if the format ever gets to the point where combined firepower feels comfortable, I think there might be an issue with the format.
That. Now, remember, suspension doesn't mean it will come off. It means it may come off.
It's a suspended sentence.
It's a parole system.
You're on parole.
Yeah.
It's anti-parole. You're not allowed. You're in jail until we get you back.
So
it's a prisoner swap situation.
With Albuquerque coming up, I believe there's going to be another suspension list before then. Is there currently anything on the watch list?
Oh, I'm not allowed to talk about that.
You can't discuss council business without first approval of the council.
That's right. I mean, just think to yourselves, if you're a Rochester Retro player at home, if there are moments where you say, I could do 82 damage on turn 2,
that's probably on the
just let that sink in. But
I did appreciate, like I said, I did appreciate you banning, suspending Goro and Shiva again, because when I prepared for my Nationals Retro, I think it was 2 years ago, when they said Goro and Shiva were back, I was like, well, I have to change my entire side deck now, because I need to be prepared for these monsters.
I mean,
and then I didn't see any of them, and I was very sad.
I'm waiting for
but for the deck I was playing.
I'm waiting for the Nick Reagan Tech Sphere decks to come out.
Oh boy, yeah. Thanks for the reminder.
Sean just makes a note. Technical sphere.
So
because it already has an errata, doesn't it?
I don't recall.
Oh.
I mean, so regarding cards, when we do suspension, it's the committee's preference to actually suspend characters over suspending non-character cards. And you may say, well, Sean, that's antithetical to what we're trying to do in Rochester Retro. What about my favorite character? You just suspended them. And it's like, well, there are like 800 characters in Rochester Retro to choose. I'm sure you can find another one. And I think it's also a little easier for players to keep track of characters instead of a 40-card list of random attacks and foundations.
Yeah.
Especially when you sit down across your rival and they put a Goro on the table, then you already know their deck's to leave. Like, hey, Goro's not allowed. Goro's suspended.
And Technical Sphere was eroded to say that it cannot copy Technical Sphere.
Yeah.
Because that was the infinite loop of just constantly copying itself and then dealing a billion because it has a billion keywords.
Especially if you're in a Nick Reagan situation where you're where you're removing Technical Sphere to get a Technical Sphere. With the 4 sets a year and the new challenges and stuff like that, do you ever think we'll get to the point where we have a retro rotation?
No. And the reason for that is, I mean, by its very nature, retro is supposed to go back. I mean, I want to go back to the primeval Universus days because there's some real nonsense that came out before 2010. If you think retro has nonsense, let's introduce you to things like Dirty Pool and You Will Not Escape. Yeah, look up those cards when you get a chance at home, folks. What I do see an opportunity for, though, is some sort of, I want to say maybe like extended or something like that, where it goes back a certain number of years. Because right now we go back 3 years effectively. Whereas maybe there's a world, especially once we get further and further away from the reset with MHA, saying, okay, well, we're going to go back 6 years. You can play 6 years worth of cards.
Makes sense.
I think that's the future of a rotating retro, is something like an extended or what they call it, Pioneer in the Wizarding game now.
So similar to like before we had the current standard, we had MHA only, standard and retro kind of living symbiotically for in 2022, 2023.
Yeah, something kind of like that. I think that's the future of a longer term rotating format, is saying a certain number of years, certain number of sets, something like that.
Going off the card backs.
Yeah. It's got a blue card back, you can play it.
So,
But not the blue and orange.
as a start and as a retro proprietary itself, how do you feel about UVS offering boxes and products as a redemption item?
I mean, I'm excited to see what the redemption continues to look like going forward. Is if we're starting to see some retro items show up on redemption, I hope that means a future where we see other cool stuff on redemption. Because up until now, it's just been promos. I'd like to see some play mats that you can't get anywhere else, deck boxes, tokens, stuff like that. I mean, I think they're seeing that the options are limitless for redemption. It's just like a prize wall, right?
Yeah.
It's just a prize wall that's digital. You have to order it, and they got to mail it to you. So I'm really excited to see what else they come up with. I think it's cool to put some retro stuff up on there.
It definitely makes retro a lot more accessible if you've got the points to get hold of it. The experiences are what got me, because we didn't see any go up this week, and I'm very intrigued to see what kind of experiences UVS are able to offer as a redemption.
A spot on Sean's Retro Council. 5,000 points.
Oh, don't, because
50,000 points.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think Nick's got like 10,000 points. He would happily jump on there just to keep himself not getting banned.
Hey, he didn't say all votes have to be unanimous. It could be a majority rules situation.
Well, so it could be like the United States, where somebody on the council, I don't know, somebody who likes the Buffalo Bills might get veto power and then has to go back and get 2/3 for an override. Or I could do what we really do in America now, just issue executive orders, forget the Constitution.
I like how detailed and in-depth the law
Thanks,
of the
I'm sad
Rochester
now.
Council's getting now. We have the president, and then we have got two houses that are going to approve all the suspensions.
And then you have the third branch, which is the judges that have to enforce the rules.
Every world will hold an election to rebuild the Rochester Council.
And every year
So you
Sean
can-
wins.
We can just switch it
Because
to
he
parliamentary,
controls the
so
vote tallies.
and we can let the council hold a vote of no confidence, and then we have to choose a new president. Yeah.
Who's the vice president of the council?
I don't think we have one. It's really not as complicated or well thought out as y'all think.
No, I'm in now for this deep council law.
Start making tinfoil hat videos about the shadow cancel of Rochester Retro.
What would you call
Their symbols,
though?
two reversed R's next to each other.
No, you have to do something like with the CCG logo, like take the G and put the two C's and put one backwards, like.
Listen, I'm not above taking bribes. Nick Reagan, talk to you.
How very American politics of you.
That's right. I would love an oligarch to pay me off.
UVS won't take bribes, won't take input outside of from the players as to what needs to be banned and other things like that. Sean is going, yep, if you give me enough money, I'll ban whatever you want.
Hey, that's a little unfair. So, while I don't think UVS Games would take a bribe
Yeah.
to choose the ban list, I do know that, especially when they have the card slinging events where, design comes out and plays games with the players, they're actively collecting data. Don't think just because that, when Tim and Jeremy Ray are asking what you think about the meta, they're just being nice. Like, they're getting good data from players who are playing against them.
Yeah, and speaking of Tim Free, we've just had Heroes of Exandria, and he put a lot of love into the design of that set, and it really does come across. How's Hero of Exandria been for Rochester? Because it seems to be selling out everywhere.
It's selling very well for us. I think we had our initial order, and I have placed 4 supplemental orders since.
Damn.
It is the best-selling set since MHA Set 1. In fact, I told I forget who I told at UVS Games. I said, hey, if you want to take that third AOT set and just put put Critical Role pictures on it, I ain't gonna stop you. The third AOT set though looks amazing so far. I think it's going to be the best one they've made.
That's fair. I know there's been a lot of people asking for the Villains of Exandria kind of set, and the Critical Role Reddit, Facebooks, all the places that I'm in there sneakily promoting the game. If they're American, asking when they can get cards, I send them to Rochester. I kind of try and get them all going to get their singles and stuff. And yeah, they absolutely love the look of the set. They love the way it goes, and a lot of them are getting a lot more interested in playing as well, which is great as an onboarding product.
Yeah, and I don't think that this set's so complicated and so difficult that it's out of the realm of people who've never played Universus before to get in. The starter decks for the set seem pretty reasonable. A lot of stores have them in stock. Plus, there's Science Bros in one of them. Science is the best rare in the set.
2 Science Bros in a starter deck. He's giving Overhaul and Muriel vibes again. But
I was more excited for the Peerless Footwork in the Bow deck because I'm going to be playing a Brawler character at the next regional I go to. And then I won my locals with the starter deck Bow because I'm insane.
Yeah, absolutely. So, going back to the retro aspect of it, you were saying new players coming in. How do you find new players react to the older mechanics? Gauge, reversal, desperation?
So my experience is, because we're card game players, and I've been playing card games since I was 10 years old, and I think card game players like when their decks do cool things, and as long as they're not getting completely demolished every round all day, they also like to see other players' decks do cool things. And I think a lot of the cards in retro, especially with multiple and gauge, it just lets your deck do a cool thing you normally can't do. Because multiple is like Echo, but better in every way. if you're the attacking player, it's better in every way.
It's also more complicated to explain to new players, but I am glad that they changed it to take the card from the top of the deck instead of the top of the discard pile and all the interactions that caused.
I have to admit, I think I have yet to actually do that correctly. I think I may have been cheating.
I think it happened on stream as well that someone did it the old way because it's just what people are used to.
I mean, we only did it that way for almost 20 years.
One of my locals who's interested in retro is obsessed with reversal. He's like, what reversal's going to put in this deck? I'm like, that deck doesn't need reversals. Just play on your turn and be fine.
So it's interesting. Reversal is a powerful but also not keyword. And I actually had one of, we call an old head, somebody who played way back in the day, came and said, hey, I want to be a judge. I'm like, okay, explain the reversal step to me. And he said, okay, so what a reversal is, it's a reward for blocking. You get to play an attack on your rival's turn that either does absolutely nothing and they ignore it, or it ends their turn, or the game. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's a pretty good description of reversal. Yeah, if you're at home and you think about building a reversal deck, think twice about it, because if your rival could just ignore your reversal and take 4 damage and then promptly kill you because you have +1 progressive difficulty, it may not be worth it.
I just
make sure all your reversals are Guardian Slash.
Nah, I like the response I get from my opponent when they play their first attack and I go, Dabby, first enhance, my next attack gets +3 damage. Like, this is my turn. Exactly. I'm like, oh no.
Your turn? Our
turn. Skull Barrier is a 2 mid for 2. No, it's a 2 mid for 5.
I gave a +3 damage with my character.
Yeah.
That's what I loved when you could play ready get set goes on your first turn after drawing as a 7-hander. It's like, oh, our first turn, and then I'll draw it. I'll build them to 10 foundations on my first turn. Let's go.
It's a fun.
Yeah,
it's a
that was
fun
kind
card.
of that was nonsense.
There's a lot of fun stuff, even just using the current stuff. Declan Savage, who has done well in events, was running a Asui free Crow and Frog City Rampage Summon Dark Shadow Ruin deck. I was basically just going.
Every other word you said made me sadder and sadder.
I don't have progressive. All my checks get ridiculous, and you just die
All
from the
right.
damage.
If I can here, Asui 3.
More Crow and Frog, really. That beats a pain.
Crow and Frog.
Oh, that's going to give me some hate.
Rampage.
Combined fire. Oh, sorry. That's my secret list.
So, you are I know final round and other TOs are doing a lot of the UVS events, but you are kind of the go-to premier UVS event organizer. How is it working so closely with the company?
Pretty good. I have a weekly meeting with Josh Massey. He's the head of OP, and Levi, who I think is the assistant head of OP. I don't want to get titles wrong, so I don't want to see the press row. This here for Sean miscategorized Levi's job. But I meet with Levi and Josh every week, and the communication back and forth is really good. And because we have that weekly back and forth, when we roll into an event like Denver or the World's Festival or Nationals, everything is pretty tight. I mean, nothing ever goes the way you expect it. You get into the room and it's 3 times the size you thought, or half the size, or they have round tables instead of square tables, and you gotta panic and get those things fixed. But I've actually had a really good time working with UVS Games because they keep the communication so open. And the weekly meeting is going to continue because my next event that I'm running is going to be the Louisville regional in July. And so we'll continue meeting every week. So we'll be talking about what the prizes are going to be, any side events we want to run, any new side events, stuff like that. So it is nice to have that weekly back and forth. And I imagine that's what Josh spends a lot of his time doing, is talking to the TOs.
That's going to be the next regional I get to go to, so.
So, since we're talking about the old times and nostalgia, will carnival games ever come back to major events?
I sure hope.
Oh, no.
I
remember playing blackjack for points against Jason Horonsky at my first world championship, and it was just bring all your packs and you just divvy them out and you just play blackjack. And I'm from Vegas. I love blackjack, and I was just sitting there, hit me. Unhealthy.
So, carnival games I don't think are awful. They just got to be kind of Universus adjacent. I haven't figured out any clever ones yet. I mean, right now, the most popular side event is actually the boss battles. We ran all weekend. It was a random encounter. So you would get a group together. We'd say, okay, sign up for boss battle number 2. And like 7 people would come and be like, okay, I want to be in boss battle number 2. And it's like, okay. And they picked a party leader. And the party leader chose from the bosses face down. They had to choose their destiny. They didn't know which boss they were going to get. And then off they went. Folks liked it because they got to meet new people. Because people were like, I want to play with my friends. I'm like, nope, sign up for the main group, make new friends, meet new party members, and have a blast. And people really liked it. We ran 22 random encounter boss battles at the Denver Regional.
I think even at Wolves, there was no point where a Briarwoods game was not happening.
No, I mean, there is incentive to play in many of those as possible because of the prize wall. You got to get prize wall tickets. But I think with the set having just come out, people were really excited to play these boss battles. And I think UVS Games, if you're listening, should put these types of encounters in every single set going forward. I want to fight Super Shredder and the super scary version of Casey Jones. I want to fight the Metroplex is the name of the giant ship that Crane the Brain has that's in the Dimension X. Crane the Brain could be a boss character. I mean, I want that for Turtles. Give me that for Turtles, please.
Give us a Bishop boss with the Mechazoids from the Tales of the TMNT bats. We could have a whole rumbling PvE for AOT 3.
Titans, yeah.
I'm not too sure about the stuff for Guilty Gear. It's not my bread and butter, but yeah, PvE is one of the big things, and I know people hate it when I harp on about it, but when I was at the summit last year, that is the one big thing I was kind of pushing, going, the Brightwood you did, more of that. That was amazing. I even pitched, like, give us a solo leveling thing where we have to level up to take on bosses as a PvE event. I absolutely love it.
I actually really like PvE events for your pre-releases. I don't. So when I'm in pre-release, especially with Seal, I don't have a ton of agency in my deck, and the skill level between a player like Kevin Broberg and myself is so great when it comes to playing with new cards and decks I haven't worked with before. It's really nice to take that giant gap in skill and kind of eliminate it, because now instead of Sean O'Brien, who's bad at Seal, has to fight Kevin Broberg and get his butt kicked in 10 minutes, we're going to instead kick the boss's butt in 10 minutes, and we're all going to have a great time.
Yeah. And it's also a case of, I pulled this absolute bomb, rare or SR, I get to dominate the entire switch. It's like, cool. This is good for standard, but how does it help me take on a boss? How you work with the people that you're also in the Seal pool with, going, it's what I put in my video taking on bosses, work with your party when you're building your deck, going, what do we need? Have we got an aggro person? Do we need support? Do we need this? It opens up a lot more avenues and kind of expands the way you're looking at building your deck as well.
Turns out every party should have a grog and a muscular.
And a pike.
Put a grog, yeah. Put one of those in each party and you'll be fine.
Oh, yeah. We found that our worlds, Jacob Massot went grog, I went pike, and yeah, the Manticore just kept getting slammed. It was great.
Yeah, so actually, speaking about the retro and boss battles, we actually made a couple changes to one more format that we haven't talked about. That is teams.
Ooh.
So one of the problems that I've always seen with teams is if you show up to the event and there's a teams tournament, but you don't have two teams, you got to try to get into a team, right? And then, the old rules, well, the current rules, technically, the company rules are, okay, well, you got to have different characters. You can't have more than 8 copies of a card. So when you're trying to form a team ad hoc, it's like, oh, what's in your deck? You got to lay your decks out. So the last couple events for teams, we've actually made a little tweak to that. And we've said that you have to have different characters in your main symbol set.
Okay, that makes more sense.
I think it's just a lot easier to, especially if you got to form a team ad hoc at the end. Granted, you can have a team that has 12 copies of Combined Firepower on it, but you got to be on all 3 symbols, right?
Yeah.
I was more thinking with attunement, you could have 12 Besiegers, 12 Attack Titan Haymakers.
Yeah.
Or 12 Combined Firepower.
Or 12
Combined Firepower. It's not attuned, so you have to have a character that's got all of them. But we could have a pony, a Dabby Free, and another character that has fire and go, here's a bunch of good attacks. But I definitely think that's really good, because it is one of those concerns when you sign up and going, oh, I want to play this deck, and someone goes, oh, well, we've already got someone with these cards in there, so you can't join us. Like, cool. But now it's the case of, oh, well, you're playing the same character spells. Do you mind changing your character? And then you should be fine because the symbols are different?
Yeah. That's the idea. It was mostly just to simplify deck building and, forming last-minute teams.
Funny enough, I have still never played teams.
You are missing out. That is the best.
I keep hearing that, but every time that I was going to play teams, either the team fell apart, or I couldn't find a teammate, or I was just hungry and I went to go eat instead.
Turns out there are 3.
I'm very food motivated.
There are 3 team champ cards with my picture on it, so I really like teams.
I have one of those too, somewhere in this giant pile of retro that I need to put in a corner next week.
Speaking of, that takes us into a nice little segue. We've got the champ characters back for Worlds. Do you think the assets and actions could come back for teams and retro at some point?
If only. I would like them to come back, but I also don't want to put additional burden on design playtests. I would rather them use their energies to make sure Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is a banger than trying to figure out if Nick Reagan is balanced. He is not. I would rather their energies be focused on, for me, cards that are sellable, first of all, that I can go to a game store and buy. But also, I want to make sure all those cards are amazing instead of having to worry energy about, champ cards. And champ cards over the years have just been notoriously unbalanced. One either way too good, not so good, and I just don't think the juice is worth the squeeze there. Sorry, Nick.
You got me a little bit worried about Garrett Brett 6 now.
He wins too much.
Give him the old Shane Duckworth treatment.
So we've got a quite hefty regional schedule throughout the course of the year. Do you think we'll ever see regionals or like non-Worlds Point big events for teams, retro, these kind of events that are more casual but still draw in people?
I think for the time being, teams and retro are going to be attached to the regionals as far as big events go. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that you got to get a lot of players together. And because the championship points are tied to regionals, that's where all the players are going to get together. Then it's easier to fire off a retro event if like at Nationals, we had a 90-person retro event because we had so many people there. Right? So, and it's tough at your local store to do a retro event, especially if, you have like 3 players and playing for a long time, 3 players are brand new. It's like, hey, thanks for coming to Universus, one of the toughest card games to learn. Also very rewarding. Also, we're playing retro this week. Have fun.
We've got a question in chat. Tell us about your favorite retro deck, Sean.
My favorite retro deck?
Yeah, because there's no Sean O'Brien character card yet.
Yet.
Well, it'd be too good. That's why we can't have it.
It'd be a boss battle card.
Yeah, he intentionally loses in the top cuts every time because he knows he'd be too powerful. He takes that hit for us.
I'm willing to make that sacrifice. I can see
Sean as a PvE boss battle. Like, start with 2 council members. Every time you activate, add an additional council member. You have
to like Tev deck.
Yeah, you have to play at least 1 card in your deck from be outside of standard.
So, I did recently come up with a design if I was to win the World Championship that I thought was pretty cool. So, my new character, if I ever got one made, would be a 6 hand size, and I would have 2 first enhanced once per game abilities. So, it would be first enhanced, both players discard their hands and drop to their hand size. Once per game.
Okay.
Once per game, first enhanced. Shuffle your discard. Both players shuffle their discard piles into their decks.
Ooh.
Oh, so just a hard restart.
Yeah. And then one last ability would be a foundation enhanced. This attack gets plus X speed and plus X damage, or minus X speed and minus X damage, where X is the number of once per game abilities you play this game.
So not even on the characters. So you've got some once per game foundations or stuff like that.
If you can find them.
If you can find them. No.
That's interesting.
I was thinking it was going to be more like a Khan kind of thing. Like, just instead of shoving your disc back in and say MTG Planeswalker that just goes, restart the whole game.
No, we're not going to share Hoppers on.
Nah.
But back to the actual question, favorite retro deck?
So, I think more than talk about my favorite retro deck, I would talk about like my favorite deck that I played all time, which was way back in the day. Probably my most favorite deck I played all time was Super Skullman 33 deck. It was all punches, and basically it was draw as many cards as possible, and then reversal your opponent out of the game with the flop. It was actually the deck I won my first champ card with. So there was a couple fantasy flight cards in it. And I remember I was playing against a mill deck, and I was playing, late game control. And my rival was trying to mill me, and I had this card in my deck called Researching the Past. It was commit, take the top 2 cards of your discard pile, put them on top of your deck. And so once the mill lock was on, I just started putting my entire discard pile back on top of my deck.
Oh, damn. Yeah, I was reading Super Skull 133. That's pretty good.
Yeah, so
fun.
Yeah, you could get up to 13 hand size. Because because if you play another Super Skullman, and everybody gets all their Super Skullmans out, you're basically a 13 hand size.
Oof.
I mean, most realistically, you only ever really got to like 6 or 7. 8 was exceptional. Technically, you could get to 9, right? No, you could get to 8. 1, 2, yeah. But that was one of my favorite characters all time I played, just because he did so many cool things. Being able to take cards out of progressive, getting to draw extra cards. I mean, could you imagine if Gage was out when he was out? That would have been so cool. You had to actually play your character cards the hard way from your hand into your card.
Because we were just talking about it, my head just went, imagine a PvE where everyone just shows up with Super Skullman.
We're a 32 hand size. Oh no, we're playing against the laughing hand. That's bad.
We just drew our entire deck and there's nothing to cycle back. Well, we lost.
So back in the vintage days, I had a deck that would do that to my rival. It was like a 90 card deck. And there was a card, this is back like 2007, that said, form commit, both players draw a card. Oh, form commit a foundation. Any foundation of your choosing. And so I would commit this card called Shinobi Tradition. To both players draw a card to pay the cost for fast resources. And Shinobi Tradition says, response tenacious. After you play a card, ready this card.
Okay.
And so I would get a bunch of Shinobi Traditions out. I would say, okay, form commit each draw a card, form commit each draw a card. Do that 2 or 3 times. Play a foundation, ready all my Shinobi Traditions and do it again.
Form commit them all.
Yeah.
And it would just be put my rival's entire deck into their hand. Then they lost. But that's why we don't play vintage. That's why we don't play vintage.
I did look through, I had a project on my channel looking through all of the character cards from like Sabretooth and Fantasy Flight and seeing which characters I would like to see certain abilities from come into Standard. And yeah, I only did it for the characters, and there was some insanity there. I was thinking of doing it for like attacks and foundations, but I was way too tired after that 3 video series. I'm just like, nah, I don't feel like looking at these anymore.
Yeah. Every so often I've got a eBay alert for like Universal Fighting System, and every so often I buy cheap stuff on eBay. I have a box of the old like Street Fighter stuff, and every so often I read for the cards like these just seem absolutely broken, and these are all just commons and uncommons.
Well, nothing's broken if everything's broken.
Yeah.
That's way fair. Speaking of Street Fighter, as one of the original old heads, how are you feeling about it coming back for its 11th product?
Yeah, it is 11 products. I'm pretty excited. I think one of the things that's cool about Street Fighter, and we're seeing this with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as well, is, I mean, I'm old. I'm going to be 39 this year. And when I was a kid, super excited to play Street Fighters, watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I mean, that was really cool. And then it came to UFS back then in 2007. And now, people my age have children who want to play card games. And so Street Fighter is a nice, evergreen, generational license.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for it to come back.
Yeah, similar to the TMNT, if we'd have just gone pure 80s, we're kind of hamstringing ourselves with cutting out a lot of the newer TMNT fans by having it with Mutant Mayhem, 80s, and a lot of the Rise of the Turtles and stuff. We're getting, basically, for those people that have kids that have gone through that, let's kind of bridge the gap, you're getting new and old TMNT fans, and I think that's really cool.
I mean, what's cool about Turtles is that usually starter decks have a hard time selling in this game because they're starter decks. Except if you want 80s style turtle cards, you got to buy starter decks. And so any Turtles deck I run, if there's an 80s style version of that card, the starter, I'm throwing that in my deck. So I'm hoping there's a ton of alt arts too from the main set that are just 80s.
Speaking of alt arts, I'm really excited to see how these ooze alt arts that have the UV reaction to them. And all we know is they're alt arts, they're ooze coded, and they react to UV light. And it's like, I need to know. Did they glow in the dark? Who knows?
That's going to be dope.
It'll be dope. And, the graphic design team they got at UVS Games right now is probably the best they've ever had. And the treatments that they're able to do in different foil patterns just makes everything look amazing. I mean, the alt arts from Critical Role all are fantastic with textured foiling. I can't wait to see more stuff like that, especially getting into tournaments.
Oh, well, spoilers for a future video coming out on the channel, but Yotan Lachar, who did the alt art secret rares, he has worked on TMNT with UVS, and if you look at the retail assets and you see the packagings for the cards, that's his art. So if you like the way that the alt art secret rares look in Critical Role, that's one of the artists that has worked on TMNT.
That's exciting.
Yeah, those are some gorgeous cards.
They really are. Anything from you, Kevin?
I'm excited for Street Fighter coming back. I've been a big advocate of getting fighting games back into UVS for a while, because anime is great, but sometimes it does feel a little bit more fair weather, like if an anime falls off or something like that, or if it ends. Whereas Street Fighter and like Mortal Kombat, it seems like every other year or so, or every couple of years, you're getting a new game, so it feels like it's something more stable to hang on to. And I'm just excited to get Jamie Sue from Street Fighter 6, because I haven't played Street Fighter 6, but he uses two of my favorite fighting styles, and I swore before I even knew what he was going to do that that's who I was going to play, and then I saw what he was going to do, and that's who I'm playing for Louisville. Calling my shot now. I'm making top 16, because that's my new goal this year. I'm going to make top 16 so I don't have to bully my locals for Worlds points, because I want to be nice to them. So yeah, I can't wait to see that, and I want to see what those alt art characters look like, because I might have to chase down an alt art for once in my miserable life.
Well, I know somewhere you'll be able to find them.
Is it RochesterCCG.com?
It just might be.
Someplace I almost have my 10% loyalty bonus on, because that's how much I shop with you. The only time I ever go to somewhere like TCG Player is if Rochester's sold out of what I need.
Yeah.
Because legitimately, best prices around and best customer service. Because right now I'm in lockdown with one seller who never got me my stuff, said he shipped it without tracking, but happily took my money, and I haven't seen the cards in 3 weeks. So I'm locked in battle to get that. But I've had Sean work with me when stuff hasn't showed up. Be like, hey, I understand that happens. We have a good rapport. Let me help you out on that, because it doesn't seem like it was anybody's fault. So also 10 out of 10 customer service. I can say that without a doubt.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we've got Card Goblin over here. They are interested in getting into the retro side of things to know how popular it is. With their new store opening, they've been a little bit behind on the customer service, but I still recommend them to all new players coming in because of the community support behind them. Essentially, they are kind of our Rochester at the minute because, as Shauna said, you're unable to send to us at the minute. I know you have been a massive community supporter for international players up until Brexit went, yeah, you're not allowed to do it anymore.
Yeah, Brexit says no fun for anybody.
So, given that you've been playing 18 years at this point, what IPs would you like to come back into Standard?
What would I like to come back into Standard?
I mean, it's 20-year anniversary. Who knows what's on the table for next year? What from the history of UVS and Universus would you like to see back in the game?
As much as I would like to see it come back, I don't think it would be a good investment on UVS Games' part, because I would love Samurai Showdown to come back, but probably not a great investment. I think I would like to see them do maybe a Penny Arcade Challenger series, go back to the very, very beginning. But, I don't think that the future in UVS is necessarily in nostalgia. I'd rather look towards the future and get cool new stuff.
Ooh.
My bucket list of things I really want is I would love to see Power Rangers, Super Sentai come to Universus.
I've got people who would sell their soul for that.
As far as anime goes, classic anime, I'd like to see Sailor Moon come to Universus. I think that'd be pretty awesome.
That would be great.
Wouldn't it just?
I think the one that Guy and myself talk about a fair amount is getting Outlaw Star as a challenger, but it's such an old IP now, and it seems just getting old and forgotten about. We got a question in chat. Given the current price hikes and up and down inflation of Hex, where do you think Sweeping Daggers will eventually peak at?
So that's a complicated market question because it's where that card settles is all going to be based on how many cases people continue to open. So if you look at AOT Set 1, for example, people are not opening cases of that stuff for whatever reason. You know, some people say the set's too big. Some people say it's not, you don't get good value. And you're seeing cards from Set 1 AOT just keep going up, right? And I think if people continue opening cases of Heroes of Exandria, I think Sweeping Daggers will settle probably about $30. However, if customers as a whole decide, you know what, Heroes of Exandria is not a great investment, I'm going to instead save my money up for Apocalypse or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I think Sweeping Daggers could be a $70 or $80 card. So I think where that card settles is dependent completely on what the market decides to do. And, not much I can do one way or the other. I mean, I can open cases, but if customers aren't, then I'm just going to sell $60 to $80 Sweeping Daggers until I run out of cases.
That makes a lot of sense. And you were saying you like to get Power Rangers and stuff in, and I think TMNT is a great sidestep kind of IP to access those kind of little ways. TMNT's been around, it's been a generational icon for 40 years at this point, and it has had its fair number of crossovers with Batman, with Power Rangers, so it has that kind of Universus aspect to it already, going, yeah, we've had Joker, let's get Batman versus TMNT, and let's get the very strange Power Rangers and TMNT team up stuff going in.
That was a funny episode when I was a kid.
I just want to see Venus de Milo. I know it's not going to happen, and it's such an old
Venus de Milo doesn't exist.
Venus de Milo.
The crossover we all need is from the 1980s Easter special, where the Turtles teamed up with the Easter Bunny. That's the crossover we need for Universus.
No, I need Venus de Milo because I need more spell support. There's going to be no spell support in TMNT. And that's what Venus de Milo does. We get that spell support. But
Go ahead.
So, with the popularity of Hex, do you think we'll see more of it in the future? Will we see Bell's Hells, Villains of Exandria? Should Universus be kind of pushing to go, let's get more of this?
I mean, I think Universus is going to pull whatever levers they can to sell more product, right? I mean, they're business and they're in business to make money, just like, Rochester is business and we're here to make money. And I mean, if I was pulling those levers and I'm looking at these sales numbers for Heroes of Exandria, like I already said, I think they should have canceled Apocalypse and pasted Critical Role cards on it. Like that stuff's going to be amazing. But yeah, they absolutely should look at other Critical Role stuff to do in the future because, we're getting into, I think, a whole segment of new players that, frankly, may have never picked up a card game ever. Because they're in the board games or they're in the role playing games. And so I think Heroes of Exandria, and the Critical Role Challenger series really invited a whole new audience into Universus. So I think any license you can find like that, and Turtles falls into that with the generational support. And I think, yeah, for that reason, yes, let's do more Critical Role, please.
So speaking of gaming IPs that will bring in a lot of players and have that kind of great crossover, how often does Tim Keefe ask you to mention Genshin Impact?
Oh, I don't know. So, first of all, I think Tim would only say that if he thought I had any control over what licenses come to the game. And I assure all the folks at home, I have no control over that. I wish I did. I mean, truth be told, I've told for years, this is back when Jason owned the company to get Turtles, and it's finally happening. So if I was to start squawking based on that track record, we probably wouldn't get Genshin until 2035.
A slow burn.
So, it would still be popular, and it would be like a free... Who knows how many other games we'd have. We could end up with a 6-set thing going.
The year of Genshin.
Yeah, we get Genshin, Honkai Star Rail, ZZZ, and then whatever else they put out at that point.
I mean, I think we
I'm
should
pretty
pick
sure you
up
made 2 of those up.
No.
we should pick up a little game that people seem to really like as a license. League of Legends. I think we should pick that one.
Yeah, surely we can get our foot in the door somewhere.
Taking that as a great segue, how do you feel about UVS doing the publishing and distribution for the Project K AR unyet named League of Legends card game?
I think that's amazing. I think that's an amazing opportunity for UVS Games. I think it's an amazing opportunity for Universus as well. I mean, presumably, and I don't know, I've not gotten to ask Josh and Levi about this, but hopefully there'll be some cross promotion across organized play, and maybe some people who come in for Project K end up saying, well, I want to play Universus as well, and some Universus players like, yeah, I like Universus, but I want to play some Project K, and I think there's really good opportunity for cross gaming there, and also maybe an opportunity for UVS to actually get League of Legends characters into the UVS game. So amazing opportunity all the way around.
Yeah, in my video, I would talk about Project K. It was one of the things that I would love to see a Jinx or a Victor challenger that has a UVS character on one side, and then you flip it over and it has a Project K champion. So when the Project K players come to collect that card, they go, "Oh, what's this in the back? Another card game. Give it a try."
You never know.
Could be interesting. Yeah, and like Sean was saying, it is a good way to get our foot in the door because Sean remembers how we got 7th Cross and what's the other level 99 one?
Oh, the World of Indies.
World of Indines, which is just like 4 little, almost like mini challenger decks. It was a deck that came with 2 characters, and the whole set was just 5 decks. So that could be a good way because I think they borrowed some of the Street Fighter license from Jasco Games to make one of their board games, and we borrowed some of their licenses for Universus. So it could be a great way to cross-pollinate and get a bit of sharing and caring to kind of expand both companies' card games.
For sure.
Well, speaking of UVS expanding, are you excited to be stocking more UVS product when we see things like Castle Panic TMNT, the new Roll With It, all these more non-card game stuff coming out? I know Star Trek Star Wars has been around for a while, and I'm hoping to see some kind of expansion for that come out soon. And even now, when you go to the UVS website, it has more games, and you just I want them to unlock it so badly. I want to see what's behind that wall.
I think it's cool that UVS Games is expanding beyond Universus. I think as far as any business goes, you don't want to be all eggs in one basket. There's a potential that some decisions by countries on the west side of the Atlantic Ocean could cause the entire world to go into a recession. And unfortunately, as we all know as gamers, that's usually the first thing to take a hit. Board games do better during recession, card games slow down a little bit. So I think it's good for the future of Universus that the company's a little more diversified and can make other products should CCG slow down a little bit.
Yeah,
something to keep the lights on at the very least.
Yeah.
I remember when Jasco was doing those big pushes with the holographic puzzles, and as soon as those went on sale, I bought my wife the whole collection for her birthday. She still hasn't put them together yet, but she's got all of the Jasco, what was it, that comic book?
Oh yeah, the Zenoscope Grim Fairy Tales.
The Grim Fairy Tales comic books, the whole 6 puzzle set that's all holographic. She's got all 6 of them just waiting to be put together. But those were great, and I thought those were a really cool side thing that they did as a company.
No, it's really cool. It's a side of UVS I've never quite seen. I joined with MHA1, and the only thing I'd seen was the Plus Ultra game, which immediately then tied back in with Universus because you had the promo and stuff, and it was all the same IP. So this is all new, but it seems to me like pre-UVS Jasco had the same kind of thing of, we have an IP, what else can we do outside of UFS? Can we get more games? Can we get more hype for this IP?
Well, one thing I'm really excited to see some expansion into is some of the new accessories that they've made. The sleeves that they made for Godzilla look really, really good. And I've seen sleeves for Critical Role up for pre-order on distribution, so hopefully that means those are coming soon. And if they look anything like the ones for Godzilla, because they look great. So hoping to...
Is that the Vexalia, what, these ones, the Vexalia Not stuff, or is that new stuff?
I think that those are the ones. They have not hit the streets here yet, I don't think.
EU got something first, let's go!
Wow, yeah, I better speak who's ever in charge. That's not allowed to happen.
No.
America first.
Yeah, you got Vex, Vax, Not, and Jester, so the Challenger stuff. And yeah, the sleeves are absolutely good. I haven't been able to do like bend tests or stuff with them yet, but I'm really happy. I don't think they are really look really cool.
I highly recommend oversleeves for those. Just to give them a little extra protection.
Okay.
But they're not that expensive either, so you just keep buying more. But if you want them to last so long, I would put oversleeves on them.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I think I'm all retroed out. I can't really think of any other questions. Cam, anything for yourself?
Like I said, retro was standard for me, so I've kind of just lived it. So I don't really have a lot of questions.
I'm so old that cards in retro have rotated out of retro, so...
My biggest thing is I'm just really sad I didn't find this game sooner. I came in with MHA 1. Yeah, I came in with MHA 1 after playing Keyforge, and similar to Sean, I've been playing card games since I was 10. I started off with cleaning my mother's friends' houses to get money for Pokemon, went into Yu-Gi-Oh!, then went into Magic when one of my friends got me into it. Went into Keyforge after that, and I'm gutted I just wasn't playing this the entire time.
Well, that's what's nice about retro is you can swing back around and take it for a new spin.
With minor changes, because the one thing I miss about not playing this game earlier, I wish I could have got in on the degeneracy that was Shin Gensai before he got banned. Because I love drunken style fighters, and Shin Gensai was banned before I got to play it. We didn't get Bo Raicho in Mortal Kombat, and we haven't picked up DOA yet, so I could play whatever the Drunken Master is in that set. So I was like, oh, Shin Gensai, and then I read him, and I was like, how did this get past R&D? This character's insane.
Didn't play test this at all.
No, they didn't. Him and his rare attack just... I was like, how did this get out of playtesting?
Here's a question.
So dumb.
Here's a question for you, Cameron. How do you feel about having booze counters and drink counters in the game, and you can't play them together?
I was a little sad about that. But considering what Jamie does, I get it. I understand. I might be mad, but I understand.
Well, it's not a wise idea to mix your alcohol anyhow.
Depends on the alcohol. I don't have alcoholic friends. I don't know what you're talking about.
You can't put whiskey in with Jamie's special drink.
Oh yeah, the elixir, because Americans don't believe in alcohol.
Not with that attitude.
Hey, my first time mixing a drink, I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and that was a bad idea.
So it's just a chaser it's a Jamie chaser. It's a special elixir and a whiskey chaser.
Well, I didn't know when you're mixing drinks that you're supposed to have an actual mixer. I just thought you mixed two different alcohols, and boy, was that a rough New Year's Eve.
That was always allowed.
Another question for you, Sean.
Just because it was allowed doesn't mean it's a good idea.
Another question for yourself, Sean, and we'll open it up to Cameron as well. What was the first booster packs you ever bought?
Oh boy.
If you need time to think, I've got this.
Go for it. It's yours.
The very first things I bought for this game were a Dr. Wily starter deck from Mega Man Rise of Masters and a booster box of Rise of Masters off eBay. Ooh. First thing I bought, and that's how I taught myself how to play this game. Something I would not recommend. Always find an adult who knows what they're doing, because I cheated a lot.
So the first sealed Universus product that ended up in my hands, I didn't actually buy. It was actually my buddy convinced me to go to Millennium Games, one of our local game stores, and he's like, here's this Yoshi Tora deck, and he tried to explain to me how it worked, and I had an awful time because the deck was way too complicated for someone playing on their second day, But prize support were packs of, I think it was called, I can't remember the name of the set. It was the first SNK set, though, was the prize support. May have actually just been the King of Fighters. I don't remember what it was called, but that was my very first pack I opened, was a pack of the first SNK set. This was back in like 2007, 2008.
The first SNK set was just SNK.
That's why I couldn't remember a name.
It was strictly just SNK.
Yeah, I think that the box toppers were. I think there was Samurai Showdown might have been for the starters, and King of Fighters 2006 might have been for the booster set, or it might be reversed. I can't remember now. It's so long ago.
It appears I got the question wrong. It wasn't for Universus. Like, what was the first card game boosters you ever got?
Oh.
Oh.
Probably have to be Pokemon for me way back in the day.
That's most people.
So
I was like 7.
For me, it was, I think, the first. I don't remember. So I remember having the old CD that came with Magic the Gathering.
Oh,
edition.
yeah.
But that wasn't my first. It had to have been a few sets before. It might have been 5th edition. Magic might have been my first pack I opened. I really don't know. I'm old. You can't ask me that. Next thing you're gonna ask me is how much was gasoline back in 1990? Was it a nickel? I mean, everything was a nickel back then, right?
I think
You're only 3 years older than me. I don't want to hear any old jokes.
Milk was a nickel. A dime was a nickel. Everything was a nickel.
I'm getting like as a dad, I'm getting major flashbacks as to how dangerous this was. But I remember being 9 years old, running in the 7, 8 o'clock at night to the store, because that was allowed back in the 90s, to get a pack of Pokemon Jungle, the second ever thing. I had £5 that I just got for doing some jobs for my mum's friends. I was like, I'm going to get in a pack, and I think I got a Kangaskhan from it, and that's just unlocked a core card game memory. Because I also remember the old white and green decks you got with the CD for learning to play, the old original Yugi versus Kaiba decks for Yu-Gi-Oh! I've been playing. These are 1990s, 1999 pre-2000 memories.
Yeah, I played Yu-Gi-Oh! For 15 years before I found this game. So I was there collecting Japanese cards before the card game even made it to America. And whatever I didn't see on the show, I just made it up.
Just like the show.
Made it up as I went along. Yeah, just like the show. They didn't have rules. They didn't know what the hell they were doing either. But I think one of my earliest card game memories was standing in line for 45 minutes to buy one pack of Pokemon cards from the base set. All I wanted was a Venusaur. And my parents were like, don't get mad if you don't pull it, because it's really hard to do. One pack, I got it at the mall. And I was like,
it was guaranteed, right?
It was actually a Blastoise pack.
Oh.
And I pulled a Venusaur, and I was just like, I got it.
Ooh.
So, just that formative, don't tell me what I can and cannot do. I was
somewhere
like 6.
in my mother's attic, there is a 150 card set of the original Pokemon, only missing a Chansey. And I'm like, every time I go to visit my mum, which I haven't done in years because I hate my mum, I'm like, let me go in the attic and do it. She's like, just leave it alone. It's like, no, I need to find these cards. You do not know what they're worth now.
I had so many Chanseys back in the day. I got so tired of pulling that stupid card. It was a stupid little egg thing.
Yeah. I had more Charizards than I had Chanseys.
To be young and rich.
No, I was just apparently very lucky with pulls back then.
No, but now think of what those are worth.
Yeah.
So you were rich, you just didn't know it yet.
Hence why I'm trying to find them.
Yeah,
It's
makes sense.
Like someone going, I had some of the Power 9 in my attic. It's like, go find them.
Could you imagine back then not the way we treated our cards, not knowing what they would be worth either?
Oh, I never sleeved anything until 10 years into my Yu-Gi-Oh! Career when people just started throwing packs of sleeves at me because they were getting annoyed. Well,
the other night we were playing Universus, we had a new player who recently started playing with Critical Role. And they opened up one of the Altar characters. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And they go to put the pack in their pocket. And we're like, no! What are you doing?
Don't do that with a card that pretty.
So yeah, 2 points on this one is I was watching a TikTok where Critical Role fans were opening up packs, and on their 11th ever pack they opened a Chrome, and immediately all the comments was put it in a sleeve, put it in a sleeve, put it in a sleeve. But remembering how we used to play, seeing as we're all heads, we probably all here know Loading Ready Run. The guys that did like magic skits and Friday nights. Oh, go check them out, Cameron. You absolutely love them. At one point they start reminiscing about playing in the past, and like one of them starts having a Vietnam flashback, like unsleeved cards being committed on a tarmac, the scratches on the back of the card. So it's like, oh, I feel that in my soul.
Yep, I remember playing on the concrete at school at lunch, right in front of the library.
I remember playing on the school bus.
Oh god.
And so if the bus driver hit the brakes too hard, all your cards would end up on the floor and go all the way up to the front of the bus. You'd have to like crawl underneath when you're getting into school and collect them. Oh my god.
And then you had those times where your teacher like, oh, you can't bring those to school, and they confiscate them like, if you lose them, you die.
I remember I would not sleeve them, but Yu-Gi-Oh! They used to have this kind of like the Capcom boxes that they did for like Capcom Platinum, but it was like a deck and then a whole bunch of 2 decks and then a whole bunch of packs. I had one of these full of decks, unsleeved, bound with rubber bands.
Ooh.
In my early Yu-Gi-Oh! Days, and everyone hated me. But I didn't see the point in spending extra money for something that wasn't technically necessary. That was before I learned the value of my cards.
As Richard pointed out in chat, a lot of events when sleeves were first announced, they weren't legal. You kind of were required to play unsleeved.
Yeah, that wouldn't work in Universus. We got so many different card backs now.
Yeah. That's rough.
Now we got to play with the matte sleeves because you can see the card back through them. That's
what dual mats are for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did not know that. I turned up to Nationals and I can see the card backs. Like, how do I deal with that? It's like dual mats. I'm like, what's a dual mat? I've been playing cards for 10 years.
They are absolutely necessary for Universus.
Yes. They're just better as well. Personally, I think I've kind of like just gone with them because they're kind of just really cool.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
We've covered Redemption. We've covered stuff like that.
That reminds me, I've got my box of Cowboy Bebop should be here tomorrow.
You actually got one?
Yeah. I as soon as Richard put into the Discord that it was live, I went to my computer at work and I saw it, and I was like, I'm gonna click that because I need one more destruction because I bought all of Rochester's and I'm still missing one.
I was too busy recording. I finished recording. I went to buy one before editing, and they were all gone. I was like, fuck.
This is why you buy first, record later.
Yeah, that's the lesson for tomorrow.
Why would you do your job? Come on.
Although I am interested to see what they're going, because they're changing it every week now. So I'm interested to see what this week's is going to be, because if they do more like Challenger Series stuff for like the 60 points, are we going to see like maybe the Critical Role Challenger Series for 60 points? So that maybe some of these Critical Role people who haven't been able to get them, or however many points they were,
it depends.
might be able to get them if they couldn't get them at their older stores.
I don't think they'd go Critical Role now because it doesn't really tie into anything else. Like what we had this week was kind of a themed week of Cowboy Bebop with Trigon and Throne because they released at the same time.
It was 600 for the Challenger Series.
Yeah.
We'll have to see what tomorrow morning brings, right?
Yep.
Well, tomorrow evening for us and very early Tuesday morning for the amazing OCE who are not happy at the minute. It's like 6 a.m. that the store updates for those guys. They don't really stand much of a chance.
Yeah, that's a real shame. I guess that's a perk of living in America.
Yeah,
we don't
it is
have
just one of
any
those time zone things. I'm just lucky that half of my job is done at a computer, so I can just pull up a window real quick and check every couple of hours. But if I'm out in the warehouse, I don't get such luxuries. I just got lucky this time.
Oh, my son hates it because when he gets back from school, he's meant to have the computer till he goes to bed, and now it's a case of, at 4 o'clock I'm going to need the computer. Why I got to record some stuff. He's like, ugh.
Yeah, because I needed one more distraction because that card's insanely hilarious, and I want to see if the pack coloring thing is still a thing. You remember that, Sean? It is. It is still in the new. Okay. Did I tell you about that, Brett?
You did tell me, and it was brought up in some of the UK Discords when people were talking about it. If you find a UR in one of your packs, pretty much guaranteed that all your URs are in that color.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened, but it was funny.
It reminded me of the old Yu-Gi-Oh cards, like when I was like the second set, like Metal Raid or something. Every 2 packs had like a ultra card in it or something like that. It was like back when mapping wasn't, you had to do it in your head. It was like, I don't know if that was actually a thing, but I spent like an hour watching people buy stuff in a toy shop, and every 2 packs you had like a bad rare and then like an ultra rare or a high quality card. I was like, okay, so I'll buy that one. It's like, that's not how it works. You just get the one at the front. It's like, okay, I'll just wait for someone to come buy that one. I'll buy that one.
I didn't know that. But then again, I wasn't paying too much attention to it way back then.
I have that ADHD pattern recognition. I don't control it.
all I cared about in Metal Raiders was Time Wizard, because that's my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh card ever. That card's hilarious, and I love it.
I'm
always down to gamble.
Time Wizard.
Yes. I was on the hunt for a metal black eyes skull dragon, like the super secret rare from the set.
Oh yeah.
But we're not here to talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! I could easily happily talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! For ages, especially with the new.
I don't know about happily, but I could talk about Yu-Gi-Oh!
Oh, with the new collection game coming out for Switch, I could sit here and talk.
I literally cannot. I never played Yu-Gi-Oh!
I still play Master Duel on the regular just for something to keep my mind going, because Universus doesn't have something like that for me. But I need something to keep the gears turning. So that's the oil right now that keeps the gears in check.
That's right.
And it's free. So.
As we start to wrap up, then any star news or anything you want to get out for upcoming for Rochester CCG star events?
Yeah, so coming up, we're going to be traveling to the Albuquerque Regional here in May. We'll be hosting and traveling to the Louisville Regional in July. We're looking to expand, so we're considering getting a bigger store, so that's pretty exciting. But we'll kind of let everything settle on that first before I announce when and where and how much and all that good stuff. So a lot of exciting stuff happening here. And I'm just looking forward to what the rest of the OP season brings for Universus.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what happens in Chelmsford. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to get to go down there. I think Spain getting one is very, very cool. And then we got Scotland, which, we know they've got strong players up there. A lot of the old heads are up there. And I'm very excited to see what all the, OP regions are actually going to pull up, because it's nice and spread out, so we're not going to have the same meta every single time like we kind of had going on last year.
Makes sense. Well, we'll see. Yeah, with all these releases, the meta changes pretty much for every single regional, so I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
I think the only one that doesn't is Chelmsford and Denver, because there's nothing that comes out in between.
Oh yeah, I think that might be the only same meta. Who knows? The meta might be completely different on Tuesday though.
That's
a week Tuesday.
We can Tuesday.
We get the ban list on April 1st.
The April Fool ban list, and also it's going to be ones what people are going to have had a lot more time to get access to hex cards, so we might see a lot more of them actually showing up. Although Tarian did show his head at Denver quite consistently.
Yeah. No, there's a lot of Critical Role characters in Denver, so I'm looking to see what they come up with in England for Critical Role characters.
I'm hoping that we're going to see I know a couple of players are looking at the starter deck characters to bring because they legitimately think they got legs. I'm like, go for it. I want to see that top.
As someone who's gone undefeated with the starter bow, she's not bad if you know how to stress your rival out. chaining Attack Titan's Haymaker into Besiege, into Attack Titan's Haymaker into Besiege, and they don't know what they're able to block with. It's a real thing.
But yeah, I think we usually go 2 hours, but I think 9 minutes is fine. Well, however, big thanks to Sean for taking some time today to just come, hang out, talk retro. Again, massive thanks for the retro products and the amazing deal you cut me at Worlds. I'm hoping I'm doing a good job of shilling you out on those videos of the content I'm doing because I
much appreciated.
Oh, I'm happy to do it, and hopefully at some point we can get you back shipping to the UK because I know how much you love to support the community as a whole. It's just a shame that part of that community is cut off from you at the minute.
Yeah, hopefully the circumstances change soon because I would love to get back to shipping to you all over in England and mainland Europe.
And as always, big shout to Cameron for being here yet again and now having to put up with me on a much more regular basis than before.
That's fine.
Yeah, thanks again for having me. This was a blast.
Oh, any time. It's absolutely great. And when the new suspension list comes out, I'm more than happy for you to come back and talk us through the decisions that went through on that.
Yeah,
on that note, I'll have to ask the committee and see if that's permitted.
He has to get 2/3 approval, but he can always veto that.
What I'm hearing is the next time that Sean comes on to talk about committee stuff, he's going to have like the robe and the hood up.
With the R, reversed R on the top of the hood.
No,
for Rochester
the R's the same. It's just got one C and a reverse C on it, so it's like it looks like a kind of insect aspect.
Oh boy.
We'll send it to design. We'll work on it.
Yeah. We'll see if we get that approved.
Get some decal artists out there and be like, hey.
I'm trying to think of there's no real way to mix Deep State and like Universus and stuff. You can't put Illuminati Rochester together. There's no mash you can kind of do. I guess it would have to be called. I guess like if we had an underground community like cabal of Universus, it'd be called something like the Deep Checks.
Deep Check.
Deep Check.
Well, I already call anyone older than like me at this game one of the old gods or the elder gods. So it's just like the Lovecraftian thing. You have the great old ones, the elder gods, the old ones. I'm around old ones, but everyone like Sean leveling up is either an elder god or a great old one. like Tim and Kevin, they're the great old ones. They're the Azathoths that do not mix well with our reality.
Yeah, it's one of those things that when we have our events, because Michael Murray doesn't play anymore, you get all these new people, and me included, who had no idea who he was, like, oh, he's just a judge. It's like, no, you don't besmirch Michael Murray's name. You don't understand how good he is at this game.
Well, hell, at the very first event I ever went to, it was a world championship, because back then you could just show up out of nowhere and play for free, which was amazing. But my friend who went, it was both our first event. Round one, he got paired into Grant Padley. And he was like, isn't that one of the champion people? And I was like, yeah, he's also right behind you, and you come up to here. And I was like, he looks like he's going to eat you alive.
Oh.
But sweet guy, really enjoyed the match, and it was hilarious. But I was like, oh, yeah, so you could just play anybody. And then my very second time ever playing, I played against Kevin Broberg in like the 4th round, and he ended my undefeated streak, so I owe him one for that.
In the first...
Ain't happening anytime soon, but...
1 month into the game, I'm playing All Might 2 because I have no access to All Might 3. I'm playing a webcam RLE, and it's like round 5, and I get a message off Michael McEwen, aka Apple, going, oh, have fun in your next round. I'm like, why? And he goes, you're facing off against Alexander Alexia. And I'm like, who's that? He goes, oh, he's just a former national champion. I'm like, oh, cool! Thanks for that!
Hey, at least he actually told you who the person was. I did that in Yu-Gi-Oh! Going up against a national champion. I didn't know who this person was, but my friend just patted me on the shoulder and walked away. I'm like, well, that doesn't inspire a lot of confidence. Thanks.
See, no one's ever mad to be paired against Sean O'Brien because they know I'm a washed-up hazmat. So
I still remember going to the Legendary Wolf Regional in Omaha, and just to hear Miles Tyler talk so much trash going over the top 16 about you, and then have to read your name off in the top 16 and eat crow immediately. It was so beautiful. So beautiful, I thought it was staged.
And then I went on to promptly lose in the first round of elimination.
But it was worth it. For just that, all of him talking smack after everything, and then comes to your name and he's like, oh, you gotta be kidding me.
And Sean held that grudge for many years and then banned Miles Tyler's retro character for his suspension list.
Hey, Terry's still legal. You can play Terry. Terry's fine.
Oh, yeah. But yeah, I'm going to head to bed because I'm going to be up early. But again, waffling on. As I said to all our guests, welcome back anytime, Sean. I'm currently working on a deck building kind of Great British Bake Off-esque deck competition, so I might ask you to come in and judge that at some point.
I saw that blowing up my phone yesterday. It's like, what is going on?
Oh yeah, you've got the UK versus, but you get all the tags.
Yeah,
now.
so I was getting notifications all day. I'm like, what am I missing? I'm trying to play in my local tournament, and I have no idea what's going on, setting my phone off.
But yeah,
so that was hilarious.
Thanks for being here, and hopefully I'll see you at Worlds. And
for sure.
Best of luck with
all everybody.
Yeah, best of luck with all the events. I'll catch you all in a bit.
Night, everybody.
Night.